I'm going to just flip around to all sorts of ideas here, everybody. My co-author, Teresa Laufman, makes the point, take more outings to get people moving, because residents simply get pooped, quote unquote. They get tired when they go places and have to get ready and get on the bus and then get off the bus. So maybe have more outings to simply get people moving more. How about walks? Anyone can take another resident who's able to walk on a walk, including family. We'll talk more about family. How about TheraBands, everybody? Do you know how much money a TheraBand costs? Look at this. My understanding is it comes on a big roll and you cut them up. So this costs pennies on the dollar. This is a very inexpensive way to get people moving. And as you hopefully know, they come with different strengths, different tensions, and that's what the different colors represent. And I would guess that some residents would maybe really get into this. I think I would. I'm a goal setter type of a person. And if you said, hey, Mrs. Bowman, have you done your 100 therapy pulls yet? I would say, oh, I'm on number 50. I better get going, you know? So this may work for more residents than you're thinking of, maybe in their room, maybe not, depending on the resident, maybe in a group. But just don't forget, these are very accessible. They're probably somewhere in your nursing home already or assisted living, and very inexpensive. Okay, another idea, something I've realized over the years, if it says exercise on the activity calendar, are you going to want to go to that? Raise your hand. Now, I like exercise, but I've realized there's not too many people that raise their hand. So we have to think about what other kinds of offerings could we be offering? And people have shared with me over the years, you know, it just makes sense. Maybe someone wants jazzercise, someone wants Zumba, someone would go to strength training or weightlifting or yoga or fitness. I mean, it's one thing to think about what you call it, but it's really a more important thing to think about what you're offering. The men who live in nursing homes, they often get lost in the shuffle. So many of our group offerings seem to appeal more to the women. So here's a place where maybe you could appeal to men. And I'll just show you a couple other things here. You know, I see a lot of little weights, even smaller than this, that a person could use. And, you know, there's so many different ways to be adapted. Here's a different way to hold on to a weight. There's so many things, again, your therapist would know. Okay? Now, what about time of day? So if you have a group offering of exercise or whatever it is you offer, when is it? And what I like showing here is how many of you like to work out in the morning? Not me. And how many of you like to work out later in the day or even the evening? Me. And so something to think about, what if in your setting you only have it in the morning? Maybe you're dismissing people without realizing it who would rather move their body in the evening or afternoon. And now what if you started to offer both? Just something to consider, especially as we get younger people. All right, how about biking? Wow, I can't even believe I'm saying biking, but here's a picture of a 2-seater bike with a resident from Brookshire House in Denver, Colorado, and a staff member. And if they can get a bike, I bet you could get a bike. How about taking residents just outside more? Just the act of going outside, hopefully getting out of a wheelchair and onto the park bench or some other chair, just sort of like the outing, just getting outside has its own way of getting people moving in a different way. And the fresh air, of course, just really is invigorating. How about, I've got some quotes in here. A CNA once said, you know what, I could take a resident with me while I'm checking on other residents. Isn't that wonderful? I've asked people to think about what could you personally do in your role to get people moving more? Because it's really easy to say, I think we should have more of this. But it's sort of like saying, well, the activity team should do that. And I've made people think about what could you personally do, and I'll ask you too at the end of this video. I'm seeing more and more that some nursing homes are hiring personal trainers right on their staff, to be on their staff. And what a blessing that is. And I'll tell you a story more about that toward the end. Also, I've heard like directors of nursing say, you know what I could do? I could just attend the exercise class with the residents. and get some of my own exercise. Isn't that great? We need more DONs at exercise class. I've heard of people who have the jobs like the business office manager say, I could get out of my office and just go stretch with a resident or a couple residents because I need to stretch myself. A social worker said the same thing. I could stretch with residents. Someone said, what if I just walked back and forth, down half a hall and back? Walk back and forth. Ooh, someone said arm dance. Isn't that fun? We need more arm dancing, don't we? Someone said, how about yard games? So let's think about yard games, everyone. There's the cornhole game. There's the yard darts and the yard golf and croquet and golf and horseshoes. And I'm sure there's many more that I'm not thinking of. Someone brought up, how about a piñata? Now we often think, oh, that's not very safe, but what if we made it work? What if we were very careful? It would definitely be movement for people, wouldn't it? Another very creative idea from another director of nursing. Wow. She said, I am going to hold a tray of water for my residents to reach toward in order to get their water during med pass. Isn't that great? So just be aware of these simple ideas, everyone. Rather than handing water to someone, holding it over here for them to have to do some stretching and reaching to get it. One time someone said, take walks to a destination like a store to go buy a treat, buy some candy, buy an ice cream cone. How about games? Wow, I'm just going to go through my mind, but what do you got? Bowling in the hall, table tennis, badminton, beanbag toss, ring toss, darts. And whatever I say, if you're like, oh, we couldn't have sharp darts, well, there's all sorts of other kind of darts, There's so many adaptive ways to do all these games these days. Someone who works in the community life or activities team said, you know what I could do? I could offer a 5-minute stretch between bingo rounds. I think that's great. Someone said, we do moving and grooving before dinner. So putting the music on and giving people something to do while they're often waiting for dinner to be served. We know that a lot of people like to get to the dining room to get to their place. You might as well use that time that's built in right there to get people moving. Someone brought up the TheraBand again, that maybe they could just have one with them. And when they visit with residents, they can incorporate the TheraBand in their visit. That's very creative. I've heard social workers say, well, maybe we could help residents get to events. Again, just the movement of getting somewhere. I've heard a lot of people say, I could help people stretch when I'm talking, visiting, checking in with them. If you happen to have a dog that lives in your nursing home, maybe get a resident to take the dog out or to do it together. Someone said, what if you had people reach up and look up on the wall? I guess there's a stretch you can do right at a wall and get your arms up, especially arms that don't move that easily. The wall becomes somewhat of an assistant. And then we have gardening, everybody. If you're not taking advantage of all the different ways that residents could be weeding the garden, planting the garden, watering the garden, weeding again, and then harvesting. No staff should do that, to be honest. Many residents get a lot of meaning and purpose from gardening. In fact, did you know gardening is America's #1 hobby? If you have one raised garden bed, I would recommend you somehow get 2. If you have 2, maybe go for 3. You know what I'm saying? If you have one flower area, maybe get a second, a third. If this is America's #1 hobby, the more you provide for people to garden, the more it will get people moving. Families. Families need us and we need them. I'd like to just say a couple things about family members. And I would like to encourage you as a person who works in a nursing home or assisted living to really think about how we might invite families, teach families, remind, encourage, almost tell families, okay, I'm trying to be careful here. I don't mean to encroach on telling anyone what to do, but here's what I see. I see family members come to be, let's say, a wife with her husband. The husband, who has dementia, sits on the neighborhood where he lives every day in the same place. The wife comes, guess where she sits? Right next to him. And it just broke my heart that they just sit in the same place every time. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could work with families, encourage, remind, teach? Do you see where I'm trying to go here? To please take your husband off the neighborhood. He's here all the time. Take him outside when you come. So if the person can walk, they need to go walk, right? If they can't walk, probably we can get them in a wheelchair, and the wife could probably give him a push, and they go somewhere else. I was talking one time to a wife of a husband who was in a short stay situation, and I said, don't you get bored just sitting in this room? And she said, yes. I said, I'm just here to remind you to go down the end of all the other halls, go exploring, go meet people, get out of this room, you know. I've heard people say another idea would be to encourage families to take their person, you know, their spouse, whoever it is, to the gym and go work out in the gym if it's possible. Another thing we can do is encourage families to encourage the person to do whatever it is they can do independently. If they can wheel themselves, let's encourage them to, I'll just walk here with you, Mom. You're doing a good job, Mom. Don't take over too hastily, and then people, unfortunately, you know, lose the ability more quickly if we do things for them, as you know. Someone brought up the idea that when there's entertainment, when residents are sort of passively watching entertainment, maybe to encourage them to move more, to clap and tap their toes. That also makes me think of the rhythm band idea, to create a band, to have drum circles, to just have ways to move, make music, all those great ideas. And the same message goes to us too. When you know someone can wheel themselves, we need to get good at, you know, figuring out how to encourage them. So we're not going to say, you can do it, you know, but somehow be gentle to say, hey, I know you want to do that on your own. I know you've been trying to get stronger, or I know you would like to get more exercise. So I could give you a push, but I'm not going to offer it if that's okay, and I'll just walk with you, or I'll meet you down there. You know, whatever's in your personality to say. But we do need to, you know, think of every way we can help people move more, and that would be one. How about a walking club? Certainly, someone in your place, I bet, would love to lead a walking club, and I bet you it'd be more than one person, and to maybe do it early in the morning or in the evening. I've heard of night shift CNAs. They know people wake up and they don't always know what to do with them. And I said to someone, why not take a resident outside to look at the stars? And she's like, wow, what a great idea. So there could be walking in the middle of the night as well, couldn't there? Going out to see the stars. I loved hearing from a chaplain say, I'm going to have walks with the chaplain, walks and talks, that would be cool. She also brought up that she's going to teach residents hand motions, which really made me realize you could also teach people sign language signs. And if you don't know this, sign language to music, particularly usually in worship, is very beautiful. And maybe a chaplain could be involved with residents who might be interested in that. And again, we have people moving. Now, that kind of leads to dancing with hats, dancing with scarves, dancing with ribbons. So there's all sorts of ways to dance besides just dancing, something to think about. And then that brought up the idea of pantomime. What if you got interested residents in doing pantomime? They wouldn't have to remember lines, but there would be movement in the sense of theater. I'm sure we've all heard of volleyball, either with a very light ball like a beach ball or a balloon. Often tends to work better than the volleyball itself, which can be a little bit heavy. Also, I once heard this great comment. We don't tell this particular resident what he can't do, but we bring him up to the bar, like in the therapy room, and we just invite him to stand and then sit again, and stand and then sit again in order to get him moving. Really creative. So I told you I would tell you more about a personal trainer story. Franklin Park is a nursing home in downtown Denver, and they have a new wellness program that is led by a personal trainer. And so the person is full-time, but shared between 2 nursing homes, and they offer strengthening and transfer skills, range of motion in a group. They offer 4 groups a day, 30 minutes in the gym, 6 days a week. And so residents can attend these groups quite often. They calculate the time for Medicare, they capture it on the MDS for Medicaid, and the outcomes have been fabulous. Residents are more independent, they are seeing fewer falls, fewer residents are needing the total lift assistance, and people are learning about it and wanting to live there. Their occupancy rate is up, and their workman's comp is down. So I'm pretty impressed. How about you? I heard a similar idea in Illinois. There was an award given to one home for what they call boxing for balance. And so they're really working on balance and really reaching out to men in particular to do the boxing, which improves their balance. So I recommend whoever you are listening to talk to your team about adding mobility to each resident's care plan. I live in the state of Colorado, and it's actually required in our state regulations that mobility has to be assessed and on the care plan for each resident. I really think that's best practice, and now hopefully you've seen that there is a much bigger push for mobility for excellent reasons. I would just ask you a couple personal questions. What can you do to get residents moving more in your community given your job, your role, whatever it is? I'd love for you to think about that and to maybe quietly make a commitment to get residents moving more, and then maybe taking this idea to the rest of your team to see how mobility can simply be increased across the board for your residents. Thank you for joining us, and remember, this is part of a series called Replacing Alarms and Reducing Falls by Using Better Practice. Thank you.